The Israel-Egypt crossing, risk, speed, and the move that turned the Yom Kippur War. In the desert night, Israeli tanks race toward water they were never meant to cross. If they fail, the war is lost. If they succeed, the balance of the Middle East changes. October 1973. Israel is fighting for survival in the Yom Kippur War. Egypt and Syria have launched a surprise attack on the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. On the southern front, Egyptian forces hold the east bank of the Suez Canal. Israel's defenses have collapsed. What happens next will decide the war. Why this moment matters. To understand the crossing, you have to understand the stakes. Since 1967, Israel has controlled the Sinai Peninsula. Egypt wants it back. Egypt's strategy is limited, not total victory, but breaking Israel's sense of military invincibility. Israel's strategy is different. Regain initiative, survive the opening blow, then turn defense into maneuver. The Suez Canal becomes the hinge point. Whoever controls it, controls the war's direction. Shock on the canal. On October 6, 1973, Egyptian forces cross the Suez Canal. They do it faster than anyone expects. Water cannons blast through Israeli sand embankments. Bridges go up in hours. Infantry pours across. Israeli strongpoints fall one by one. The Bar-Lev line, once considered formidable, collapses. What Israel thought would take days, Egypt does in hours. Is surprise more powerful than technology? Israeli counterattacks fail. Israel responds with speed but not preparation. Armored counterattacks are launched immediately. They fail. Egyptian infantry, armed with modern anti-tank weapons, devastate Israeli armor. Losses are heavy. Momentum is gone. For the first time in decades, Israeli commanders face a question they rarely ask. What if we can't push them back? Defeat is no longer unthinkable. The strategic dilemma. Israeli leadership debates options. Continue frontal attacks and bleed, or attempt something far riskier. A bold idea emerges. Cross the Suez Canal in the opposite direction. Not to retake ground, but to threaten Egypt's rear. It sounds impossible. The canal is wide. The banks are defended. Air superiority is contested. But speed might compensate for weakness. This plan has no margin for error. Planning the crossing. The plan centers on a narrow gap between Egyptian armies. If Israeli forces can exploit the gap, get armor across the canal, disrupt Egyptian supply lines, they can force Egypt into a strategic crisis. Bridges must be built under fire. Units must move at night. Confusion must be used as cover. Myth versus reality. Myth. The crossing was carefully planned in advance. Reality. Much of it was improvised under pressure. The first units cross. On October 15 to 16, Israeli paratroopers cross the canal in small boats. They establish a fragile bridgehead on the west bank. Egyptian forces do not immediately grasp the threat. Israeli engineers race to assemble pontoon bridges. Every minute matters. Retention beat. If the bridge collapses, everyone on the far side is trapped. Pause and think. Would you send forces across water knowing retreat may be impossible? If you value real military history told with clarity and consequence, subscribe to Mission Debrief. Speed becomes survival. Israeli armor begins crossing. Traffic jams form on the bridges. Air attacks threaten construction. Artillery fire is constant, yet the crossing holds. Israeli units fan out on the west bank. Egypt's supply lines are now exposed. The war's geometry changes. Myth versus reality. Myth. The crossing immediately decided the war. Reality. It created leverage, not instant victory. Is speed more important than strength? Egyptian reaction. Egyptian command now realizes the danger. Orders are issued to counterattack the bridgehead. But coordination falters. Units are tied to canal defenses. Command structures are stretched. Time is lost. The Israeli foothold expands. Encirclement. Threat. Israeli forces push deeper. They cut supply routes. They threaten to encircle Egyptian armies east of the canal. Cairo itself feels exposed. For Egypt, the original limited war is turning into something dangerous. For Israel, the gamble is paying off, but barely. Myth versus reality. Myth. Israel regained complete dominance. Reality. The situation remained fragile until the ceasefire. Superpower pressure. As Israeli forces advance, global pressure mounts. The United States and Soviet Union intervene diplomatically. Both fear escalation. A ceasefire is negotiated, then violated, then enforced. The crossing gives Israel leverage at the negotiating table. Without it, the outcome would look very different. The ceasefire line. When the guns fall silent, Israeli forces are west of the canal. Egyptian armies are partially encircled. Neither side has total victory. But the war's narrative has shifted. Egypt regains confidence. Israel regains initiative. The battlefield has reshaped diplomacy. Does battlefield success always equal strategic success? The human cost. Losses are severe on both sides. Thousands killed, many more wounded. The crossing is remembered as a maneuver but paid for in lives. For soldiers involved, it is not a legend. It is survival under fire. Outcome. Impact. Modern relevance. Outcome. The crossing prevents Israeli defeat and reshapes negotiations. Impact. Leads eventually to disengagement agreements and later peace talks. Lesson. Speed and risk can compensate for surprise, but only briefly. In modern warfare, maneuvers still matters, but only when paired with timing and restraint. The Israel-Egypt crossing was not inevitable. It was a decision made under pressure that changed a war. Was the canal crossing a calculated risk or a desperate gamble that happened to work? Thank you for watching.